This is a special edition interview of LTV's East End News with correspondent Dara Berger. We cover the important things happening in your neighborhood. Good afternoon, LTV viewers, and welcome to today's special edition interview with Assemblyman Tommy John Schiavoni. And we are very excited to get to know the politician and the person. So welcome. Thank you for sitting down with us today.
Well, thank you, Dara. It's good to be here.
And I would like to let viewers who don't know about your background, I'm going to list off some of the things that you have done prior to becoming an assemblyman. You have 32 years experience as a teacher, and then you served on the North Haven Village Zoning Board of Appeals, and then village trustee, Sag Harbor School Board, and next to the Southampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals. And then you were elected to the Southampton Town Board, and then finally an assemblyman of District 1. So what prompted us to give you a call and ask you to come down here to the studio was we heard you got a 100% scorecard by the New York League of Conservation voters for your environmental conservation efforts. Can you tell us a little bit about how it felt to be recognized and what types of initiatives that you've been involved with?
Sure. I'm proud of the designation from the New York League of Conservation voters. Not a lot of us did get that designation, and it mainly deals with a series of environmental initiatives in the New York State Assembly and whether or not you support those laws, and I do. One of the more salient pieces of legislation that we're pushing for is packaging reduction. It's no secret that when we get packages in the mail or we purchase them, there's a lot of material around them, and that material gets into our waste stream, and not only that, it gets into our environment, and it's also expensive for municipalities to dispose of these products. So we want to reduce the packaging. I think it's good law, and it's something that we did not get passed last year, but we are still working on that. Also, reductions of PFOs and PFOAs in beauty care products and other products, shampoos and things like that. We really don't need them in there, but yet they're there. And these are some of the initiatives on the legislative on the state level that I'm supporting. As far as environmental, here on the eastern end of Long Island, being a coastal community, the environment is near and dear to my heart and to the hearts of people in our area. So that is one of the most important issues in New York State, and the reason why I represent this area.
And a lot of people think that it's about just preserving land, these environmental conservation initiatives. And what I saw listed out was it's about safeguarding drinking water, protecting consumers from harmful chemicals, like you said, leaching into the water. And then you talked also about holding corporate polluters accountable. Is that an issue out here, or?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, look, there are PFOs in virtually all of our water. It's just a question of how much. And the municipal water, and people can get their private wells tested too. And there are microplastics that have gotten into our environment, and they are now in virtually everything. Microplastics are found in animals in Antarctica. They're in you, they're in I, and we do not know how they affect us biologically. There's just no science around it. As far as corporate polluters, we are giving subsidies to gas and oil companies, but yet they pump tons of carbon into our atmosphere every year. And we want to reverse that, and we want to be a leader nationally and internationally to do that. So yes, corporate polluters, similar to the Superfund concept, a corporation that has made money by producing something, well, they should be part of the remedy to clean up what they've done to the environment.
And PFOs, most people would know them as forever chemicals. That's how they hear about them, because we don't get rid of them, unfortunately, once we're exposed to them. And I got my own well tested. I was so happy to be at 0. There were none. I was thrilled.
Congratulations.
Yes, I know, because it is a really big problem, and they're doing cleanups in different areas out here. Are there any other conservation efforts that you would like to do going forward, or that you're concentrating on?
The Peconic Bays, yeah. I would like to see the Peconic Bays become more healthy. I think it's in pretty good shape currently, but there is a group called the Peconic Estuary Partnership that does a fantastic job at organizing the municipalities around the Peconic Bays. There are a number of incorporated villages. There are 5 towns in their entirety that touch the Peconic Bays, and it is one of the most productive ecosystems in the world, and it needs to be stewarded and maintained and studied so we can possibly bring back some of the habitat, the eelgrass habitat, which is one of their initiatives. And all of these things take resources, and so one of the things that I do is to try to get those resources back to groups like the Peconic Estuary Partnership and the Cornell Cooperative Extension, and to support the work that they do for our bays.
Now, you do a lot more work besides the conservation efforts that you have. And recently, with the event that happened in Minneapolis with that woman, Renee Nicole Good, with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, you set out a couple press releases. You have concerns about, ICE out here on the East End and what's going on, as a whole in the country. Can you talk a little bit about, because people were glued to their television sets, and we're just wondering, what you feel on a local level for our community about your concerns?
I am concerned about the methodology of Immigration Customs Enforcement, ICE, and what they are doing nationwide. They have operated out here on the East End, and it's tough to watch. They are a militarized organization. They come in fatigues, face covered. They generally are well armed, M16s with sidearms, and they're taking people off at the street without cause. They may say that they have cause, but they're really not following the principles of law enforcement in New York State that we have grown to expect. And I'll say that our police officers, they go to great extents to get training and to educate themselves and conduct themselves in a way where that if people are detained, one, they know why, they know when, and then they get their proper due process. What we're seeing from the federal level through Immigration Customs Enforcement, that is not happening. And there are citizens who are being taken off of the street. We were told at the outset that these were going to be criminals and the worst of the worst of the worst, or whatever the heck was being stated, but that is not what's happening now. So that is a concern. I'm also concerned about the normalization of having military organizations on our streets, in our cities, in our communities. That is something that we do not accept in the United States, and I am concerned about that. Additionally, and probably the most important, it breeds distrust in government. It breeds distrust for our law enforcement, for our officers that are in fact working for the people, that do tell them the reasons why they are detained, and for our courts that provide legal representation to everyone in the United States. And I'd like to remind our viewers that in the Constitution of the United States, it says all persons, not citizens, no qualifications. Every human in the United States is afforded the rights under the U.S. Constitution. So, for those reasons, I believe it's a slippery slope to say, well, some people, others, and that we will devolve into authoritarian rule in the United States, and I am concerned about that.
And I'm wondering, did you get a lot of calls to your office? Because you put out that press release that talked about what happened in Hampton Bays.
Mhm.
And is that how you heard about it? Calls to your office
I-
by community members?
Yeah, we had calls directly to me and to my office early that morning that there were ICE operations. Now, this is the federal government, and the federal government can operate in the state of New York under certain circumstances. Right now, they're using this is under the supremacy clause in the United States Constitution, and they're using the emergency powers of the federal government. They've declared an emergency, so that it seems it seems like a reach to me, but that's the authority that the federal government is claiming to undertake these operations. And yes, people did call me, and I was in communication with other local leaders as well, and I put out the statement that I did. Very concerning.
And is there anything that community members should do or could do going forward in regards to this issue?
It's kind of interesting to see what is forming in different parts of the United States where community members are working together with other community members to alert them of the operations of immigration, customs enforcement, ICE. To be vigilant. Of course, if there are people who have broken the laws, who are criminals, 100%, let's arrest them. Let's get rid of them and make sure that they are not in society. But then there are other folks who are productive members of society who have lived here and worked here, many of them for many, many years, and they contribute to our economy and pay taxes.
Absolutely. And then let's talk about another issue that is pretty dear to your heart, which is the South Fork commuter connection. Because you care a lot about people being able to get out to the East End, being able to leave the East End and go up island. So can you, for viewers that don't know what it is, can you explain what it is?
Sure. The South Fork Commuter Connection is essentially the Montauk branch of the Long Island Railroad. It is from Spionk out to Montauk. It is an underutilized transportation link, and my predecessor, Fred Thiel, has been trying to get increased service on that since the 1990s. This is an effort that it goes back a long way, and he was successful to get 2 more trains in the morning and 2 more in the afternoon. What we need is hourly train service, more regular train service in the mornings and the afternoon to give people a viable alternative to get out to the East End so that they can get to work or move between the towns and get them out of their cars. I don't think it's any secret that the South Fork of Long Island, our roads are under-engineered. We've known this for the past, quarter of a decade, and that we have too much traffic for the roads as they currently exist. Now, the state of New York did know this in the 1960s. They actually had a proposal to have the Sunrise Highway go all the way out to Amagansett and Napeague. That didn't happen. We stopped it. So, and it's not going to happen, and I don't believe that it should happen. But I think that the increased service on the Long Island Railroad, on the Montauk branch, South Fork Commuter Connection is absolutely appropriate, and it will help the situation. It won't solve it, but it's going to help it a lot.
And besides traffic congestion, which of course is a big problem, I hear a lot of employers out here are having trouble, being able to hire people, let's say from up island. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it affects the businesses, the municipalities, right?
Yeah, it does. And it drives up prices because employers have to pay their employees a higher wage to get them to come out because they sit in traffic because of the difficulties there. It's private industry, our hospital, our medical facilities, every town, every school, they all have trouble finding employees. Transportation is one of the problems, and that kind of gets us to housing. Out here, we have we have a housing emergency where our workforce does have to come from up the island, and it's causing problems. But so in order for governments, in order for businesses to attract quality employees, they have to pay them more. And of course, that payment gets passed through to customers and taxpayers.
Absolutely. Now, you've been working really hard to get the MTA to make upgrades and repairs to enable expansion of the train program. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, we do have a bit of a victory this year. The MTA is going to be fixing 3 bridges on the Montauk branch, Cranberry Hole, Sagaponack, and River Avenue. So that's about a $100 million project, overdue. But really what we need is sidings along the railroad tracks. So see, these are areas where the trains can pull over and another train can go by. That is coupled with a new signaling system, incredibly important, so the trains can go past one another, and then upgrades on many of the train stations that currently exist. And also some work in Spionk too. There's some pull-offs that are needed. So the MTA has quantified this project. They estimate it would cost $260 million to upgrade the Montauk branch of the Long Island Railroad. And myself, as well as my colleagues in the school districts and local governments, and private industry, we are pushing the MTA to make these improvements on the South Fork so we can get that increased service that we need.
And how do you think that would affect residents? Because we're talking not just people coming out in the summer, we're talking about the year-round residents, correct?
Mm-hmm. From the people I talked to, almost to a person, they like the idea. They like the idea of the commuters taking the railroad. Also moving between the various villages. Now you can go from Hampton Bays to East Hampton, and it would take 29 minutes. And then you're in East Hampton, and you can go, be there for a while. But it's a viable transportation link. But we have to make sure that people can depend on it. They like the idea of the railroad, but with the sporadic service that currently exists, you just can't trust it. And most of the jobs that people have now, their jobs are not, traditional 9 to 5 where you punch out and it's predictable. If something comes up, you have to stay, and that means you'd miss the train. So, they take their cars. They would love to take the train, but they can't because we don't have the extended service.
And let's talk a little bit about these last mile shuttles. Could you tell, because I don't think that people are even aware. I think a lot of people think that they've got to find parking.
The towns of East Hampton and the towns of Southampton, they operate their own shuttle service through a company called Hampton Hopper, who do a fantastic job. Thank you. And that is funded by the state of New York. In fact, I just got the budget numbers this week, and I've been getting $750,000 for those shuttle buses, and the governor put 500,000 into the budget, and we've got to get that up a little bit. But that's my job in the next couple of weeks, and I'm confident that we can do it. But they're bus loops that take employees from the train stations, mostly to schools and the hospitals. They are currently the most predictable employees as far as hours and people that can take the train. So we do operate bus loops in East Hampton, all the way Amagansett, all the way out to Montauk, East Hampton, as well as Sag Harbor and Bridgehampton, and Southampton. Myself and other elected officials will take the trains and we'll talk to people and ask them, how do you get to work? Why are you on the train? And myself and a newly elected Councilman Tom Neely, we would take the trains and we would watch what people do at the train stations. Are they getting into cars? Are they walking to work? And many of them take the shuttles. So there's a whole bunch of modalities that people use to get from the trains to their work. See, people will figure it out. But the buses are important, and I think public transportation like that would be part and parcel to an increased train service.
And then as far as Hampton Hopper, does it come on a regular basis, or do people go on an app and request one? How does that work?
They're bus loops. They go from from the train station to the school, to the other school, and they do that in the afternoons and in the mornings. And excuse me, not in the morning. Yes, in the mornings from train. I'm getting confused. From train station to the work, and then from their place of work back to the train. So no, it's not an app. It's a bus service that comes at a certain time. We put out a schedule, and the buses show up at 3:11, and people have to get into the bus, and and it works well. And the people who are using this service, it's kind of fun. They know each other now. It's kind of a bit of a coffee clutch, and they enjoy taking the bus and the train. They're not in the car, and so it is working. And I think it's important to note that we take on the average of about 400 commuters across the Shinnecock Canal every morning by train. So if we increase the service, I'm personally hoping that that number's in the thousands. So, but that would only work if we have a regular train service, and that is what we're pushing for.
And I gotta tell you, I can't even imagine that there were less trains because there's so few right now. When you want to go to the city, I mean, I forget, is there 3 that go into the city?
3 daily, and then 2 more in the morning and in the afternoons.
And if you miss that 10 o'clock one, I mean, you're like staying over in the city.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah. And it's common, I do this with my family, it's common for people to drive to Ronkonkoma, park your car, and then take the train from there because of that. And that is also part of I've talked a lot about the commuters going east on the South Fork, on the Montauk branch. But also these trains would connect to the New York City system too. So it would provide more trains and more regular service for New York City commuters out to the East End.
So, and we talked earlier about you.
I do want to, before we I do want to appreciate and acknowledge my colleagues in local government and the schools. They've been very supportive, and they write letters, and so it's an effort from the local, school, county, and of course state level, and MTA is seeing that. So, well done there.
Well, that's wonderful, and maybe we should encourage viewers to write in, or make suggestions on Facebook. So I know we mentioned earlier that you said that you think it's really important that all community members are recognized, and which brings us into the last topic that we wanted to speak with you about, which is the Montauk Indigenous Tribe. They have been trying to get reinstated in New York State for a very long time. They keep getting vetoed. And I think a lot of people don't really even know the history. Can we go back to around 1910 when there was this lawsuit where they, lost their, title and they were no longer recognized?
1910, Faro versus Benson, and the Faros lost. And in the ruling, the judge declared that the Montaukets to be extinct. And of course, the irony, if you don't know this, the irony is that there were about 80 of them in the courtroom and others outside. The Montaukets are not extinct. They are part of our community throughout Long Island. They live on the East End as well as all the way to Queens. So there are folks who are Montaukett, who are our friends and neighbors and community members, and I went to school with them. I had friends with them, So it is one of the. It's a serious injustice that we in the state of New York did back in 1910. I don't think any of us were alive in 1910, but it's high time that the Montaukets get re-recognized or reinstatement of their recognition, and that's an important point. This is not a new recognition. This is a reinstatement of a wrong that was done in 1910. Additionally, in 1910, a New York State Supreme Court judge did not have the authority to declare a tribe extinct. That power only was only with the United States Congress. So they were acting out of their jurisdiction, and it's kind of like got lost to history a bit. But the Faros are still here. the Fowlers are still here, the Walkers are still here. These are families, and many other families who are Montaukett.
And from what I've read is they keep, putting in the paperwork, they're showing everything they're supposed to, but it keeps getting vetoed through multiple governors.
Yeah, and this is the 7th time that this bill has been vetoed, and I asked Governor Hochul, to please sign it the next time around. We are going to be putting the bill back in. I am in talks with the Montauketts, and it looks like they want to keep at it. And I think this year would be the year to do that. By the way, it was vetoed by Governor Hochul, and before Governor Hochul, it was vetoed by Governor Cuomo as well. So yes, the paperwork is in. The state has asked for extensive records from the Montauketts. They have provided these records, and the vetoes keep coming. So we're not going to stop either.
Good. It sounds like it's long overdue and they deserve it. Can you tell community members a little bit about why is it important for them to be reinstated?
Well, in my opinion, to right an injustice that we did to these folks. There were lands that were taken by Arthur Benson in Montauk. There's a long history on that. I'll kind of put that to the side. But the Montauketts did not go away, and I believe in the interest of justice that that this recognition should happen. The state of New York has recognized other tribes. The last nation to be recognized was in the school district where I work. The Poospatuck Reservation was recognized in the 1960s, and of course, the people on the Poospatuck Reservation are the Unkechaws, and so they are a state-recognized nation, and this is what we are seeking for the Montauketts. In fact, the legislation that we are using to reinstate recognition for the Montauketts almost is identical to the legislation that was used to recognize the Unkechaw and the Poospatuck Reservation in Mastic Shirley area. So I believe the precedent is there, and it should get done. This passed the legislature unanimously, except for one vote in the Senate.
And is another reason it's becoming a sovereign nation, there are certain protections they'd be offered?
Yes, there would be certain protections as a recognized nation, and consideration for education and perhaps health care.
And what are your hopes that you think that it might happen soon?
My hope is that it will happen this year.
Oh, wow.
Once we put it in this year, that is what I hope. And and then we should be dealing with the Montauketts as a sovereign nation, as they should be.
And is there anything that you think that viewers watching could do, write any kind of letters to anyone to support this?
Yes, be aware once we pass it, and I am convinced that this will be passed early in the session, and feel free to write your not only your representatives but your executive, the governor.
Wonderful. Well, this was extremely informative and wonderful to get to know you and all the work that you do. Is there anything else you'd let viewers know before we, conclude the program?
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate this. It's fun to talk about some of the issues, and I really urge people to stay engaged. I think with a lot of the unpleasant things that are happening right now, there's a tendency of people to turn away. Don't turn away, and please remember to vote.
Definitely.
It is the one thing that it is the one governmental job that citizens actually have, to vote. And I hope everyone does get out and vote, whatever your colors or stripes are, wherever you are. So.
Well, wonderful. We'd love to thank you for coming here in studio to speak with us. And then thank you to viewers for watching this special edition interview with your Assemblyman, Tommy John Schiavoni. And we hope you'll tune in again next week. Please consider following us on YouTube or Instagram. And I'm your host, Dara Berger. Have a nice day.
LTV's programming is made possible by the New York State Council on the Arts, with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature.